They said a woman could never lead a starship, let alone a fleet. They laughed at her, mocked her, and even tried to sabotage her. But when the galaxy watched her claim victory, silence spread like a shockwave, leaving every doubt shattered forever. Stay till the end to witness how she proved the universe wrong. Comment below your favorite moment and subscribe for more stories that defy limits. They said a woman could never lead a fleet, never command soldiers, never make the impossible possible. Every council meeting, every briefing, every whispered word carried the weight of disbelief. She's too young, too inexperienced, too, well, a woman, they said. Commander Celerave had heard it all before, and yet, the fire inside her refused to die. Even as the galaxy doubted her, she knew that leadership was not a matter of gender but of will, strategy, and heart. Her mind was sharp, her instincts honed, and every challenge that came her way had only strengthened her resolve. Every time someone underestimated her, she turned it into fuel. From the smallest human colony on the outskirts of the Orion expanse, Celera had grown up in a world that demanded more of her than most ever did. She had watched fleets fall apart under poor leadership, seen brilliant strategies abandoned because those in command were blinded by pride or fear. It was in those moments, when others faltered, that she realized humanity's greatest weapon wasn't raw power, it was adaptability. She could see patterns, anticipate moves, and calculate risks in ways most commanders never even considered. But brilliance alone would not silence a galaxy that refused to believe in her. The Galactic Council was a labyrinth of old prejudices and rigid traditions. When her name was put forward for the mission to secure the border sector against a rising alien threat, the room erupted in disbelief. Some laughed outright, others muttered insults barely loud enough to be ignored. No woman has ever led a war fleet. Why should we start now? They asked, voices dripping with arrogance. Celera met their skepticism not with anger, but with calm clarity. She did not need approval to succeed. She only needed the chance to prove them wrong. Every laugh, every sneer, every dismissive glance only made her more determined to succeed. Her first day aboard the command vessel was a test in itself. The crew, though trained and disciplined, had been told to doubt her, to question her every order. Celera observed them quietly, letting them show their skepticism openly. She watched how they worked, noted their strengths and weaknesses, and began to subtly reshape the team into something more cohesive than any had expected. She gave them confidence not through empty words, but by demonstrating it. Orders were precise, explanations clear, and every successful maneuver was a proof of her capability. Slowly, suspicion turned into reluctant trust. But trust would not come easy, not in the first crucial weeks. Sabotage attempts, whispered rumors, and outright disobedience were constant tests. Some officers deliberately misreported information, hoping to trip her up or make her look incompetent. Others spread rumors to alien factions, trying to undermine the fragile reputation of the human fleet. Celera, however, treated every challenge as an opportunity. Each setback became a lesson, each betrayal a reminder that leadership demanded more than skill. It demanded resilience. She had to think 3 moves ahead, anticipate every possible failure, and stay 10 steps ahead of those who doubted her. Even as she pushed herself, the human fleet faced a universe that had long dismissed them. Alien observers mocked their ships, calling them primitive and ill-equipped. Intelligence reports were often ignored by higher authorities, and every calculation Celera made was questioned. Yet she adapted, turning the constraints into advantages. Limited resources forced her to innovate, alien arrogance opened openings she could exploit, and human ingenuity became the secret weapon no one anticipated. The fleet, once uncertain, began to respond with the same energy that fueled Celera. They began to move as one, anticipating her commands, trusting her judgment even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Her victories, though small at first, began to echo through the sectors. Skirmishes that others expected her to lose were transformed into tactical lessons in human resilience. Enemy scouts reported unusual maneuvers, unpredictable strategies, and a leader who seemed to think in ways no alien could anticipate. Every encounter reinforced the notion that humans were not merely reactive. They were adaptive, relentless, and capable of exploiting every opening. And at the heart of this growing legend was Celera, a young woman who refused to accept limits imposed by tradition or prejudice. Despite the victories, doubt lingered. The council watched every move, ready to criticize, ready to replace her at the first sign of failure. Celera felt the pressure not as a burden, but as a crucible. Every decision, every risk, every command was a chance to prove that humanity's potential was greater than anyone had imagined. Her mind moved faster than the algorithms the aliens relied on, faster than the rigid strategies her enemies expected. She understood that leadership was more than issuing orders. It was inspiring belief, turning fear into courage, and showing that even the smallest, underestimated forces could leave a mark on the galaxy. When the Council finally gave the formal order for the mission to confront the hostile alien fleet, whispers filled the chambers. Some doubted she could survive, others openly hoped she would fail. Celera heard none of it, focusing instead on her crew, on the strategy, and on the unspoken promise she made to herself. She would not only succeed, she would redefine what leadership meant. She would show the galaxy that humanity, guided by vision and courage, could defy every expectation. And most of all, she would show them that one woman, no matter how underestimated, could lead an entire fleet into victory. Every step she took, every order she issued, carried the weight of expectation and disbelief alike. But Celera moved forward with unwavering certainty. Her mind, her heart, and her spirit were aligned with one purpose: to prove the impossible was possible. And in the quiet moments before the fleet jumped into hyperspace, she allowed herself a single thought, one that would carry her through the battles to come. They may have doubted her, they may have laughed at her, but she was ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do under her command. The engines hummed, the stars streaked past, and every eye aboard the ship turned toward the future. A future that Celera would shape, not with the approval of the Council, but with the undeniable force of human will. The galaxy had spoken, but it had not yet listened. That moment of silence before the storm was her chance. And when the first shots were fired, when the first strategy unfolded, the galaxy would learn, in no uncertain terms, that leadership is not defined by expectations, it is defined by results. The moment the fleet jumped into the outer sectors, the galaxy's whispers followed them like shadows. Aliens who had mocked their preparation now had a reason to smile, confident that the human ships were a weak, predictable force. They did not know Celera Vey. Every maneuver, every calculation she made, was designed to exploit the arrogance that blinded them. The enemy expected hesitation, but Celera thrived in chaos. She used it to her advantage, positioning her smaller fleet where the aliens least expected, forcing them into patterns they had never encountered before. Adaptability was humanity's edge, and she wielded it like a weapon sharper than any laser cannon. The first clash tested everything the humans had trained for. Alien ships swarmed in perfect formations, numbers overwhelming, weapons superior, strategy rigid and unyielding. The Council had predicted failure within hours, even minutes, and yet Celera remained unshaken. Every order she gave was precise, calculated to exploit openings others could not see. She anticipated flanking maneuvers, countered ambushes before they were executed, and redirected her ships in a rhythm that was almost artistic in its efficiency. The crew, initially uncertain, began to move in sync with her commands, responding without hesitation. Fear was still present, but it had been transformed into focused energy, a shared determination to survive and prevail. The aliens began to notice the pattern they had not accounted for: unpredictability. Every engagement that should have been disastrous for the humans turned into a lesson in ingenuity. Celera had anticipated the enemy's reliance on brute force and superior numbers, and she turned it against them. Human ships darted through corridors of space, using gravity wells, asteroid belts, and stealth tactics in ways the alien commanders dismissed as impossible. They could not adapt, they could not predict, and they could not understand how a smaller, seemingly weaker fleet could outmaneuver their largest formations. Pressure mounted as reports of minor victories reached the Council back home. Every success came at a cost. Human lives were lost, ships damaged, but each sacrifice strengthened the resolve of those who remained. Celera understood that leadership was not just about winning, it was about inspiring belief even when the odds were insurmountable. She addressed her crew not with empty slogans but with calculated reasoning, showing them that every move had purpose, every risk had meaning. Even in the darkest moments, her confidence radiated, and the humans responded. Their determination became contagious, a force that no alien could calculate or counter. Communication across the fleet was constant, a network of signals, codes, and quick decisions that had to be flawless. The aliens attempted to intercept and manipulate these signals, hoping to create confusion. They underestimated human ingenuity. Celera had prepared contingencies, fallback protocols, and deceptive maneuvers that allowed her to use enemy interference against them. Each attempt to manipulate or outmaneuver the human fleet became a trap. Each attack turned into a lesson for the aliens in underestimating a species they had long dismissed as primitive. The alien commanders' arrogance was their undoing. They relied on history, on tradition, on past victories, assuming that humans would follow predictable patterns. They did not anticipate creativity born of necessity, born of survival, born of the refusal to accept limitations imposed by biology, politics, or expectation. Celera exploited every weakness, every assumption, every overconfidence. She forced their fleet into traps of their own making, creating openings for decisive strikes that no alien mind could have planned for. Each small victory, each tactical innovation, was a testament to humanity's resilience, and the legend of Celera began to grow in whispers across the galaxy. Despite the victories, tension was constant. Supplies were limited, ships were damaged, and the humans were far from invincible. Celera could feel the weight of every life aboard her fleet pressing down on her decisions. Mistakes could not be afforded. Hesitation could not be permitted. And yet, she refused to let fear dictate her strategy. Instead, she used it to sharpen focus, to anticipate every contingency, to ensure that every move carried the highest probability of success. Her crew's trust, once reluctant, now became unwavering. They followed her not because they were ordered, but because they believed in her, because they understood that the limits others imposed on them were only illusions. The turning point came during a calculated ambush at the edge of a nebula. The aliens believed the humans were trapped, their route blocked, their options exhausted. Celera had anticipated this exact scenario. She ordered her ships into positions that created the illusion of confinement while secretly maneuvering smaller strike teams to critical points in the alien formation. In a single, synchronized attack, they exploited weaknesses the enemy did not know existed. Alien vessels were destroyed, their formations shattered, and the remaining forces scattered in confusion. Victory, though costly, was undeniable. Humanity had turned the impossible into reality, and Celera's brilliance had made it happen. As reports of the ambush spread, the Council could no longer dismiss her. Yet the praise was cautious, tinged with disbelief. How could a human fleet, under the command of a woman dismissed by so many, achieve what so many had failed to accomplish? Celera ignored the politics, focusing instead on the next objective, the next calculation, the next challenge. She knew the victory was temporary, that larger threats waited ahead, and that her greatest test had not yet come. Every battle, every maneuver, was a step toward proving that leadership was measured not by tradition or prejudice but by results, by courage, and by the ability to inspire unwavering loyalty. The fleet moved with precision, anticipating alien movements, countering every attempt at suppression, and adapting at speeds no opponent could match. Celera's mind worked like a machine, calculating possibilities, predicting enemy reactions, and coordinating human ingenuity into a force that no alien could anticipate. Each victory reinforced the fact that humanity's greatest weapon was not firepower or numbers but unpredictability, creativity, and the courage to act when others hesitated. By the time the fleet established a forward position deep in enemy territory, whispers of Celera's genius had begun to spread. Alien scouts reported maneuvers they could not explain, decisions they could not predict, and a leadership style that defied every assumption they had ever held. The human fleet, though smaller and battered, had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon of strategic brilliance in the eyes of those who had long underestimated them. And at the center of it all was Celera, calm, focused, unyielding, and ready for whatever the galaxy would throw next. Every step forward brought new challenges, but each challenge reinforced a single truth. Human ingenuity could overcome prejudice, numerical disadvantage, and even the arrogance of an entire alien armada. Celera had proven that adaptability, courage, and leadership born from vision rather than expectation could turn the tide of war. The first victories were not just tactical, they were statements, echoes that would ripple across the galaxy, challenging assumptions and rewriting what it meant to lead. Victory is a fragile thing, especially when doubt lingers within your own ranks. Celera had faced the galaxy's disbelief, alien arrogance, and impossible odds, but she had not expected betrayal from those she trusted most. Orders were ignored, supplies mysteriously rerouted, and critical information delayed at the exact moments it was needed. Someone on her fleet was working against her, believing that humans were too small, too inexperienced, too foolish to lead under her command. The revelation hit silently, like a shadow creeping through the bridge, but Celera did not flinch. She had anticipated adversity in every form, and betrayal, while cutting deeper than any enemy fire, would not stop her. The saboteurs' actions were subtle but lethal. Communications were intercepted, navigational data altered, and critical maneuvers misreported. A single ship, guided by falsified coordinates, strayed into a trap, almost costing lives. The crew's morale wavered. Fear whispered in their minds, feeding doubt that Celera could not fully erase. Yet she did not address the betrayal openly. Instead, she used it to sharpen the fleet's discipline, to test their resilience, and to expose weaknesses in ways that would strengthen them for the battles to come. Every misstep became an opportunity to learn, every act of treachery a lesson in vigilance. Celera's mind worked relentlessly, unraveling the threads of deception while maintaining focus on the larger war. She could not afford hesitation. Not now, not ever. Each ship's status, every weapon system, every human under her command became a piece in a larger puzzle she was solving in real time. The saboteurs' intent to disrupt became irrelevant. Celera turned it into advantage. Human adaptability, once again, became the edge that no alien force, and no internal sabotage, could negate. The fleet began to move in a way that combined discipline with unpredictability, anticipating threats from all sides, turning danger into opportunity. The aliens sensed the internal turbulence and tried to exploit it, believing that disunity would be the fleet's undoing. They were wrong. Celera's leadership transformed uncertainty into strength. She devised maneuvers that seemed impossible, using scattered positions and compromised communications to lure the enemy into traps of their own making. Every strike was precise, calculated, and devastating. The alien fleet, confident in their superiority and in the humans' vulnerability, found themselves countered at every turn, forced into defensive positions they could not sustain. The humans, though battered and weary, were unbroken, their cohesion strengthened by the adversity that had sought to tear them apart. The betrayal revealed something more profound. Leadership was not about command alone, but about vision, resilience, and the ability to inspire unwavering loyalty even when faced with treachery. Celera addressed her crew in quiet, deliberate words, instilling confidence without revealing her full knowledge of the saboteur. She allowed them to feel empowered to make decisions and to see the power of their own ingenuity. Humans do not rely on orders alone. They improvise, adapt, and exceed expectations when given the chance. The fleet's response was immediate and unwavering. Disobedience and doubt gave way to cooperation and trust, and the humans became a living example of the potential that arises when fear is replaced with determination. The enemy, sensing the humans' resilience, grew increasingly reckless. Their numerical advantage was rendered irrelevant by Celera's strategic brilliance and her crew's newfound confidence. The saboteur, realizing that their attempts at disruption had been rendered futile, faltered in silence. Humans capitalized on every hesitation, every miscalculation, and every arrogance-driven misstep. Celera's strategy combined foresight, improvisation, and psychological manipulation in ways that left even her closest allies awed. The humans, once underestimated and mocked, were now feared, not for their numbers or firepower, but for their intelligence, creativity, and cohesion under stress. As battles raged, Celera's leadership became legendary in whispers across the galaxy. Stories of improbable victories, of a fleet maneuvering flawlessly despite internal sabotage and overwhelming odds, spread quickly. The aliens began to question everything they thought they knew about humans. Their confidence eroded with each engagement, replaced by hesitation and fear, emotions they had never expected from a species they had considered primitive. Humanity's unpredictability, its ability to adapt, and its refusal to surrender became an unstoppable force in its own right. Even as they achieved victory in these skirmishes, the cost was real. Ships were lost, crew members injured or killed, and the saboteur remained a looming threat, a reminder that danger could come from anywhere. Celera mourned the losses silently, honoring each sacrifice with renewed determination. Every life lost became a motivation to succeed, every setback a spark for ingenuity. She understood that leadership required balancing strategy with empathy, command with compassion, and courage with calculated risk. Humanity had proven it could overcome external threats. Now it had proven it could withstand internal ones as well. The turning point came when Celera discovered the saboteur's identity, not through brute force or interrogation, but by anticipating patterns of deception and predicting behavior. Confronted with the evidence of their treachery, the officer attempted justification, claiming humans could never survive under her leadership. Celera did not respond with anger. She did not humiliate. She dismantled their arguments with clarity and precision, demonstrating not just the failure of their actions, but the strength of her command and the resilience of her fleet. The saboteur, faced with undeniable truth, was neutralized, and the crew emerged stronger, unified, and more confident than ever before. By the time the fleet advanced deeper into enemy territory, every human aboard understood that survival and victory were not guaranteed by numbers, firepower, or expectation. They were guaranteed by unity, courage, and the brilliance of their leader. Solara's reputation grew not because she had avoided failure, but because she had used every obstacle, alien attacks, sabotage, doubt, and fear, as a catalyst for success. Why? The alien fleet, once dismissive, now faced a human command structure that was unpredictable, cohesive, and brilliantly ruthless. Solara's victories, born of adversity, cunning, and human creativity, had begun to rewrite the galaxy's understanding of power. The whispers of disbelief and ridicule that had followed her from the council chambers were replaced by astonishment, and fear began to creep into the hearts of those who had once thought her a trivial opponent. Every victory, every maneuver, every decision in this crucible of betrayal and adversity brought the fleet closer to the moment that would silence the galaxy entirely. Humanity had proven its strength not by following rules or tradition, but by defying expectations at every turn. Solara had shown that leadership was not a privilege granted by rank or prejudice, but a force shaped by vision, intelligence, and unshakable determination. And as the fleet pressed onward, the galaxy began to realize a truth it had long refused to accept. Underestimate humanity, and it will surprise you in ways you cannot imagine. The alien armada loomed ahead, an overwhelming force that stretched beyond the horizon of known space. They had grown arrogant from victories against lesser species, certain that this human fleet would crumble under their weight. Every signal from their command pulsed with overconfidence, every formation rigid with tradition. They did not account for Solara Vey. She had faced doubt, betrayal, and overwhelming odds before, and she had learned that victory was never a matter of size or firepower. It was a matter of ingenuity, precision, and courage. Solara did not hesitate. Every calculation, every variable, every possible outcome had already been considered. Her fleet moved in perfect synchronization, smaller ships weaving between larger vessels with agility no alien formation could predict. She used the environment, asteroid fields, gravitational anomalies, and debris clusters, to mask maneuvers and create confusion. The aliens, accustomed to linear tactics, faltered as their expectations were repeatedly subverted. Every misstep they took became an opening, every assumption a weakness that Solara exploited with ruthless efficiency. The battle began not with a roar, but with a calculated precision that left the alien fleet disoriented. Human strike teams executed coordinated attacks, hitting critical systems while avoiding direct confrontation with overwhelming forces. They moved with a rhythm that was impossible to anticipate, combining speed, strategy, and human creativity. Solara had designed every maneuver to maximize impact with minimal loss, turning each human disadvantage into a tactical advantage. The alien commanders, unprepared for this level of unpredictability, scrambled to adjust, only to find themselves repeatedly countered. Every crew member felt the intensity, the pressure, the weight of responsibility. Lives hung in the balance, decisions made in split seconds determining survival. Yet fear did not paralyze them. It focused them. Solara's calm authority radiated through the fleet, transforming doubt into determination, hesitation into action. Even the most junior officers executed complex maneuvers flawlessly, guided by her strategy and inspired by her unwavering resolve. Humanity's adaptability and cohesion became a force more powerful than the raw strength of the alien armada. As the battle escalated, Solara unleashed tactics no enemy had ever seen. She split her forces into decoys and strike teams, forcing the aliens to react to phantom threats while the real attack struck at the core of their formations. Alien weapons fired at empty corridors of space while humans exploited weak points with precision. Every engagement reinforced the impossible reality. Smaller numbers, constrained resources, and unconventional leadership were no match for ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Humanity was unpredictable, unstoppable, and devastatingly effective. The alien flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, became the focal point of Solara's plan. Every move was designed to lure it into a trap, a calculated sequence that forced the enemy to commit its most powerful assets while exposing its vulnerabilities. Human ships darted through gravitation fields, masking their approach, while strike teams prepared for a synchronized assault. The flagship, confident in its superiority, moved with arrogance into the kill zone, unaware that every step was anticipated, every maneuver predicted, and every weakness exploited. The first strike hit with devastating accuracy. Critical systems were disabled, shields faltered, and the alien flagship was forced to scatter its defenses. Celera pressed the advantage relentlessly. Human ships, smaller and faster, penetrated the gaps the alien fleet had never imagined. Each strike was precise, deliberate, and devastating, proving that strategy and intelligence could outweigh numbers and firepower. The aliens, stunned by the effectiveness of the attacks, began to retreat in disarray, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. Every moment of the battle reinforced a truth the aliens could not comprehend. Humanity's strength was not in conventional measures, but in its unpredictability, creativity, and resilience. Solara's fleet, though battered and tested, remained cohesive, coordinated, and decisive. She exploited every hesitation, every miscalculation, and every assumption, turning adversity into opportunity and chaos into victory. The alien armada, once certain of dominance, found themselves disoriented and overwhelmed by a species they had underestimated. Human ingenuity reached its apex as Celera coordinated a final, decisive strike. Strike teams attacked simultaneously from multiple vectors, exploiting every vulnerability in the enemy's formation. Alien ships, powerful and numerous, were destroyed faster than they could respond. The flagship, crippled and unable to retreat, fell under concentrated fire. Humanity's victory was decisive, but it was the result not of brute force but of leadership, strategy, and unyielding resolve. Celera had transformed doubt and disadvantage into triumph, proving that courage and intellect were the true measures of power. As the remnants of the alien armada scattered, a silence spread across the battlefield. It was a silence born not of surrender, but of disbelief. The galaxy had witnessed something it had never expected. Humans, led by a woman, had turned the tide of battle through ingenuity, determination, and flawless execution. Every skeptic, every doubter, every voice that had once dismissed them was now forced to reckon with the reality of human potential. Solara's name became synonymous with brilliance, her strategy studied and feared, and her victory a permanent mark on the galaxy. In the aftermath, the fleet regrouped, damaged ships repaired, and casualties honored. Celera did not bask in personal glory. Her focus remained on the survival and cohesion of her people. She had proven that leadership was not about position, privilege, or tradition. It was about vision, resilience, and the courage to act when others hesitated. Humanity had achieved the impossible, and she had led them there, unwavering, brilliant, and unstoppable. Every report, every transmission, every whisper across the galaxy carried the same message. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were intelligent, adaptable, and capable of turning even the direst situations into victory. Solara's triumph was proof that the universe had misjudged a species it thought it understood, and it would not make the same mistake again. The battle had been won, but the lesson it taught would echo for generations. Underestimate humanity, and it will respond in ways you cannot predict, ways you cannot overcome, and ways you will never forget. The human fleet, though scarred, moved forward with renewed purpose. Solara's leadership had elevated them from underdogs to legends. Every maneuver, every calculation, every act of bravery had proven a single truth. When human will, intellect, and adaptability meet opportunity, even the most insurmountable odds can be shattered. The galaxy had watched, and the galaxy had learned. The galaxy fell silent. The alien armada, once arrogant and unchallenged, had been shattered, scattered, and humiliated. Every system that had doubted humanity's strength now reeled in disbelief. Commander Celera Vey's name echoed across communications channels, whispered by those who had expected failure, feared by those who had assumed victory was inevitable. She did not seek glory, yet the weight of achievement rested heavily on her shoulders. Every loss, every victory, every decision had brought them to this moment, and now the universe had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Leadership is defined by vision, courage, and the ability to act when others cannot. The Galactic Council, once skeptical, now faced an undeniable reality. They had publicly doubted her, openly dismissed her, and yet Celera stood before them, not just as a commander, but as a symbol of human potential. Her victory had silenced every council chamber, every debate, every voice that had claimed a woman could not lead. No speech, no argument, no history could erase what had been accomplished. She had led a human fleet against impossible odds and emerged victorious, proving not only her brilliance but the limitless adaptability and determination of humanity itself. Every officer and crew member aboard the fleet understood the magnitude of what had been achieved. They had followed her into battle, faced overwhelming numbers, survived sabotage, and emerged stronger for it. Celera did not dwell on her own heroism. She acknowledged them, honored their courage, and reminded them that their collective effort had made this victory possible. Humanity's greatest strength was not one individual, but the unity, ingenuity, and resolve of a species that refused to be underestimated. Every life lost had meaning, every sacrifice a step toward an unprecedented triumph. The aliens, those who had once mocked and belittled humanity, were forced to reassess everything. Their arrogance had blinded them to human unpredictability, creativity, and resilience. A species they had considered primitive had rewritten the rules of engagement, demonstrating that adaptability and intelligence could overcome even the most overwhelming force. The silence that spread across the galaxy was not just awe, it was fear, the kind born of realizing that underestimating humanity carried consequences they could not control, and a lesson they would never forget. Celera addressed the fleet in a voice calm but resolute. She spoke not of personal triumph, not of glory or revenge, but of responsibility, of the lessons learned, and of the future they would shape. Every word reinforced the bond between leader and crew, the unity that had carried them through fire and betrayal, and the collective strength that would define humanity in the galaxy. She reminded them that victory was not the end, but a reminder that when humanity acted with courage, ingenuity, and determination, no challenge was insurmountable. Reports of her strategy, her decisions, and the fleet's performance spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Scholars, commanders, and strategists dissected every move, every calculation, every seemingly impossible maneuver. What had been dismissed as luck or chance was now recognized as genius. Celera's brilliance became a case study in leadership. Her methods proof that ingenuity and resilience could turn disadvantage into advantage. The galaxy began to understand that humans did not simply follow orders. They adapted, they improvised, they exceeded expectations, and they endured where others would have faltered. Even as celebrations echoed through the fleet, Celera remained vigilant. She understood that victory had consequences, that the galaxy would not forgive weakness, and that humanity's potential would attract both admiration and envy. Her mind was already considering the next steps, fortifying alliances, preparing for retaliation, and ensuring that humanity's newfound respect was never taken for granted. Every choice, every strategy, every action reinforced a single principle she had carried since the beginning. Leadership is not inherited, it is earned, and it is proven in the crucible of adversity. The Council formally acknowledged her accomplishments, but their words were insufficient to capture the magnitude of what had been achieved. Celera did not seek recognition, she sought results. And the results were clear. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humans, guided by vision and courage, were forces to be reckoned with. They could survive betrayal, outmaneuver overwhelming numbers, and outthink enemies who relied solely on strength and tradition. Humanity's potential had been underestimated for too long, and Celera's victory was a permanent reminder that such miscalculations came at a high cost. As the fleet regrouped, the surviving crews reflected on the journey. They had witnessed brilliance under pressure, courage in the face of fear, and leadership that transcended prejudice. Every human aboard had been tested, and every human had emerged stronger, smarter, and more determined. Celera had not only led them to victory, she had transformed them into a force capable of shaping the galaxy's future. Every heart beat with pride, every mind with renewed determination, and every soul with the certainty that humanity would never again be underestimated. And then, in a quiet moment that contrasted the chaos of battle, Celera allowed herself to consider the impact of what had been accomplished. She had silenced doubt, shattered prejudice, and proved that leadership was not a privilege of tradition, but a testament to courage, intelligence, and perseverance. The galaxy had witnessed a force that could not be predicted, a species that could not be contained, and a leader who would not be denied. The story of her victory would echo through the stars, inspiring generations to come, a permanent reminder that humanity's potential was limitless when guided by vision and determination. As transmissions spread, as histories were recorded, and as whispers of her brilliance reached the farthest corners of the galaxy, Celera's thoughts returned to the people who had made it possible, her crew, her fleet, and humanity itself. Their courage, loyalty, and ingenuity had carried them to a moment no council, no alien, and no critic could deny. They had achieved what was thought impossible, rewritten the rules of engagement, and shown that humanity's will could overcome every obstacle. Celera knew this victory was only the beginning. The galaxy would watch, would test, and would challenge humanity again. But she also knew something else. No force could predict the human mind, no tactic could counter human ingenuity, and no prejudice could diminish human courage. Her name would forever be linked to the triumph of the species that had been underestimated for too long. The galaxy would remember, respect, and fear the power of humanity under the command of Celera Vey, the woman who had silenced the universe with victory. Every report, every record, every communication across the stars now carried the same undeniable truth. Leadership is proven through action, courage is proven through endurance, and humanity's potential is proven through results. Celera had shown the galaxy what was possible when doubt was transformed into determination, fear into focus, and challenge into triumph. The legacy of her victory was not just a story of one woman, it was the story of humanity at its finest, a species capable of surpassing every expectation and leaving an indelible mark on the universe.